Right. All right, we are gonna get started on this week's assignments. All right, so in Canvas, I brought that up so that you guys can see kind of where I've moved everything for this week. We've got the instructions for completing the Uniform Hazardous Waste Manifest, which is the hard copy that I gave you guys as well. And then the guide for preparing shipping papers. Like I told you the other day in class, though, it's almost exactly the same. You're going to use the same kind of codes. You got to put the information in the same order, things like that. The difference is shipping papers are going to be raw materials that are leaving your facility to go somewhere, where manifest is only going to be waste materials that are going somewhere. Okay. So we're going to work on today filling out the manifest. Where it says manifest activity, when you do this one, it's a quiz for the information that goes on the manifest. So today I've given you guys a copy of the manifest. We'll put the information in that just so you can kind of see what that looks like. And then when you go in to take the quiz, if you have that little sheet with you, you're going to have all of the information. Okay? Yes, that's the copy of the manifest. All right. So
Manifest activity is a quiz.
yes, it is a quiz. It's going to be a multiple choice quiz. So it's going to ask you things like what goes on section, let's say like 9A for this material, or what goes in section number 10 for this material. So once we fill this out, you will have that information. Okay. So what you will need is your hazardous waste manifest instructions, your copy of the hazardous waste manifest, and then I gave you 2 copies of pages from the great big table of everything, the hazmat table. This is going to be for potassium permanganate, and the other one is for acetic acid. So these are the 2 materials that we are going to pretend that we have some waste materials that are going out of our facility.
All the tests are gonna be over these 2?
The quiz, yes, it's just gonna be these 2. So and actually the directions that are for that quiz is what I've got right here. It's gonna tell you, gotta have 10 multiple choice questions about information required to be filled in on your manifest when you are shipping hazardous materials from your facility. You're gonna need to watch the video, which is what you guys are in class right now, so you don't have to watch the video. Download a copy of the manifest form and the directions for completing that from the EPA website, which we'll do here on the screen. In the quiz, you're gonna be asked what information belongs in certain sections of the manifest. So if you don't have a copy of that manifest, then it will be difficult for you to know which section that is on the manifest. So you'll wanna make sure that you keep that copy of your manifest with you. Which reminds me that link, I don't think, let me see, did I have that up here? I did not have that link up there.
Yeah, I was looking for that, I've seen it happen.
Pull that up here. Department of Environmental Quality. This is. Space manifest information. Yeah, okay. So this is you know, add this to the. All right, so when you open the manifest, you've got the instructions for the manifest right here. That's the same instructions that are in Canvas. If you followed that link, it's going to take you to this. That's the ones that you have in your hands today. The other thing that we need, back to the modules real quick.
What else we need is a larger desk just for these papers.
Right, you need more room. Okay, so here's the copy of the manifest. So when you followed that link, let me go back one, just make sure it's showing up on the video over there. Yeah, it is. Okay. So the first thing in the bullet points where it says uniform waste manifest PDF, when you take that goes to the example manifest. So that is the one that I'm saying, print off a copy of that, have it with you while you're doing the quiz. So when it asks what goes in section 6 or 10 or whatever, you can look at that to see what that section is asking for to give you a better idea. And then those of you that are here in class, you've got the hard copy of that we're going to put the information in today. Okay. The other thing that you need for filling out the manifest is going to be the hazardous materials table, because you're going to need a little bit of information off of that. So let me move the link for the table down here. So we've got that as well. Okay. And then you guys have the hard copy, but that is the same information that you'd be able to find if you went to the table that we looked at last week. So we scroll down to the third table that shows up here, expand the table, Control F to make it searchable. And the first one that we were looking at was acetic acid. I remember that one came up weird because it has a different shipping name. Do you guys remember what the UN number was for that one?
Here, look it up.
Oh, wait, 27, I have it written in my papers. 2780. Okay, there we go. So that should be the page that you guys have there that you're looking at. All right, so acetic acid right here. This is the information that we are looking at. We have on your manifest. We're filling this out. We'll start at the top line. And if you look at the printed out directions that I gave you, the hazardous waste instructions, this is something you might want to keep in case you find yourself responsible for filling out manifests in the future, because it tells you line by line exactly what you need to put in the manifest. Okay. So we would start off at the top with the generator's ID. That's going to be your company's EPA identification number. Page 1 of, and you're going to tell how many total pages of manifest you would have, because there's only a few lines there for your chemicals. So if you're shipping a lot of stuff, you may have several different. So if you had 2 or 3 pages of manifest, then you would put that 2 or 3 up there in that little block. Emergency response phone, that has to be in the
Why do we put on it, on the ID page?
page. Like if you had 2 or more pages, then you would put the total number of pages that you have up there.
We don't.
You don't have to fill it out right now. I'm just telling you, that's why we go in the box. For the emergency response phone number, that phone number has to be somebody who is available 24 hours a day and would be able to answer questions about the chemicals that you are shipping in case there was a spill. Okay, so that you don't want to put your number down as like the safety person if you don't know anything about the chemicals and you're not responsible for hazardous materials. That would need to be whoever is familiar with these materials and would be able to answer questions. The manifest tracking number is going to be near a number in series. Now, this one is printed from a sample, and so it said void on it before I whited all that out. If you order manifest, a lot of times they're going to have that number pre-filled in there, and so you're going to make sure that you don't have any identical numbers. They're going to continue to go in sequence. Just like, I don't know if any of you guys even still use checkbooks anymore, but like when you order new checks, you have to put in what the new numbers need to start with. So when you order new manifest, you're going to put whatever the last number that you had, you're going to put that next number and they'll start them in series after that. Generator's name and mailing address. That is going to be your company that is shipping these materials out. And then if you move over to the right, just a little bit from that in the same box, it says generator site address. So you're going to put their name and phone number on the left-hand side, and then the mailing address, or I'm sorry, the site address on the right-hand side.
And that is something we need to fill out.
You don't have to for this one now. This one, we're just gonna put the chemical information in, just making sure you guys know what all goes in it, okay? For number 6, that's the transporter company name. So whoever's picking up your hazardous waste, take it elsewhere, you'd put their company number there and their EPA identification number. If they hand it off to a different transporter, then you'd fill out line for transporter 2. A lot of times it's just gonna be one transporter picks it up, takes it all the way to the hazardous waste site. So if there's not a transporter 2, then we wouldn't have information there. 8 is gonna be your designated facility name and site. That's where the waste is going to be disposed of. So you're gonna put their address in there, their EPA identification number, their phone number, and then you finally get down to the chemical information. So the very first column, you got 9A, and it's a very narrow column. Let me bring it up here on the screen so those that are watching the video be able to, this is gonna be this column right over here. You got 9A and it says HM. What this is asking you is the material in this line a hazardous material? And the reason why, I mean, it seems like, well, yeah, everything should be a hazardous material, but sometimes stuff is gonna be shipped that is not a hazardous material. And it's gonna be in the same truck with other stuff that is hazardous materials. And everything that is in that truck has to be on the manifest regardless of whether it is a hazardous material or not. The reason for that is if you have a wreck, they need to know whether or not anything else in there might be something that is not compatible with those hazardous materials, may have some reaction to it or present some other kind of hazard. Like for instance, when I first took this DOT training class, the guy that was teaching it, he had told me that when he first was learning about DOT and all this stuff, he was a firefighter. And they were on a scene where they had a truck wrecked on the side of the highway. It's on fire. They know that it is the materials that are in there. They can't just spray water on it. So they're trying to like get their plan together for what they're going to do. And they realize that it's about to explode. So they all go run and jump in the ditch, duck and cover, and it explodes. And then they hear this weird metallic tick, 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 all over the place. And so they stay in the ditches till it all stops. So they come out and then they're like, what was that? And the strange metallic tinking noise that, what that was a pallet load of machetes that had been in the truck that were not on the manifest. So they had no idea that there was gonna be dangerous flying shrapnel, machetes flying at them when they ducked and covered. Luckily, none of them got impaled in the ditch from the flying machetes that were coming out of the truck. But that's why everything is supposed to be on the manifest, even if it's not a hazardous material. So if it is a hazardous material, then you're going to put a mark in the 9A box. Or if it has a reportable quantity, you can put the actual reportable quantity in that box. So most of them, we're just gonna check off saying, yes, this is an X mark in that box says this is a hazardous material, okay? The next box, 9B is gonna be the DOT description for its proper shipping name that you are gonna get from the hazardous materials table. So acetic acid, we know, has a name that is different than acetic acid. When we look it up on the table, it's acetic acid, glacial or acetic acid solution with more than 80% acid by mass, right? And if you guys remember when we looked up last week, the benzyl alcohol. Benzyl alcohol is not its actual proper shipping name. It goes by like aviation fluid fuel, not otherwise specified, something like that. So you always need to check the table, make sure you have the correct proper shipping name. It also is going to include the hazard class, the ID number, and that's going to be its UN ID number, and then its packaging class group. So if we're filling out this manifest for acetic acid, we have to include this entire title. You can't just put acetic acid. You have to put everything that is in this. Let me see if it'll let me fill it out in this form.
You
If
have to download it.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. If I download it, and that way I could show you guys like.
So are we putting all 10 chemicals on this one?
We're only gonna put 2 on this one for the quiz.
But for like the project, we don't even fill out.
You don't have to fill out a full manifest. No, we're just gonna do the 2 so that you know what the information looks like on the manifest, so that when you fill out that quiz, you've got that. Let me see, where did it go when I downloaded it? All right, well, let me edit. Save it on the desktop and see if it'll let me then. On my computer in the office, I can totally do
So
this,
if you right
but
click it, you can click open with,
there,
and then it'll be, get, oh wait, this is even gonna work. Oh, because it's, I don't know why it's doing this. So,
There you go. Now I can edit it.
okay, I
Hmm.
don't think I have that program.
It's Adobe.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I can edit it. I can on my computer in my office. I don't know if I can in here. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm worried about you messing up the reading on it,
Let's see.
like I don't want you to just download it.
There we go. Okay, so, it lets me highlight stuff. All right, let me erase that. All right, and go back to Zoom and share that so they can see what I'm doing here. I think it's this one.
Yeah. No.
So, oh, no. Not that one, the other one. No, it's still not letting me put the information in. Okay, so right here in this box, you're gonna put the proper shipping name. So if you are using Mozilla, you would be able to copy and paste. But if you don't have the editable version of Adobe, then it's not gonna let you do that. With the hard copies that you guys have, you can just write it in, but write it tiny because you got a lot of information that goes there. So you would be putting in the acetic acid, glacial or acetic acid solution with more than 80% by mass. The next piece of information, you're just gonna put a comma at the end of that, and you're gonna put its hazard class. So we go back to your table, the hazard class is the next thing, so that's gonna be an 8. Then you just put a comma right after that. Then you're gonna write in the UN number, UN 2789, comma, and then write the letters PG, capital letters PG, and the Roman numeral 2. That's gonna be your packaging group 2, okay? So you always have to put them in Roman numerals. I don't know why, but that's the rules. So follow the rules when it comes
Probably
to that.
because it's universal.
Right, it's universal. Everybody is looking at the same thing that way. And sometimes people's handwriting is a little difficult and it's much easier to see 2 lines mean 2 than what their squirrely numbers might look like. All right. So when we go to, what was I looking at? The next part on the manifest, the container types. Okay, so we want to know what kind of containers are these materials in the scenario that I gave you online. It is going to say, let's see, the chemicals that you're looking for are acetic acid, potassium permanganate. You're going to look up those chemicals on the hazardous materials table and be prepared to answer questions about how much you would, or how you would complete the manifest if you were shipping 1 55-gallon plastic barrel of acetic acid. Okay, so before you just write in plastic barrel there, you know that you got 1. So on the column right here where it says the number, we could put a 1 there because you know you only have 1. But on type, they have codes for the different types of containers. So if you look at the instruction sheets and you go to the 3rd page, it's got types of containers. What's the code for a plastic drum? You should be looking at a little table like this.
Yeah, for plastic, well,
Mhm.
yeah,
DF,
yeah.
okay, which is not what you would have anticipated, right? Could have just put a drum or plastic, but to fill it out properly, DF is the type that is gonna go in that first line there, okay? Total quantity of material that you have there, you know that from the description, you had 1 55-gallon barrel, so you're gonna have 55 in your total. And there is another table on the next page for the codes for the different types of measures, and gallons is just a G, so that makes it easy. So you would have under column 11, 55, and then 12, the unit is going to be G for gallons. Okay,
What goes under the, you know?
what goes,
Uh,
that's the number of containers you have.
And that scenario you're reading off of is the one that we use
That's what the
Oh,
quiz will
okay.
be.
at the beginning, oh, so.
when you go in to do the manifest quiz activity, that's gonna be the scenario that you have for that.
Okay, so it'll give like the information.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
Just for.
yeah, but if you fill it all out today, you're gonna have all the answers that
Well,
you'll.
just for like the online class or
But-
anything
right.
else, it was like, where do I find all this?
Yeah, it's in the instructions for the manifest activity. All right, so we have the number of containers is one, the type was DF, plastic drum, quantity 55, and then G for gallons, right? All right, now the waste codes, what that is it, if it has recro waste codes. So look at your table that had all of that information on it, and did acetic acid have recro waste codes? I believe that would have been table 3 that y'all filled out a while back. I'm like, so many papers, all fits together, what?
It's almost like it's all part of the same big cycle.
It's all part of the same plan.
So I'm behind a little bit.
What's the-
We were looking to see, does acetic acid have a recro waste code? It should have been on table 3 when you were getting all the chemical information. I believe it was, I want to say the last column or pretty close to the last column.
Is that an Excel document or?
It was a Word document. It should have been chemical chart, table 3, I think is what it was called.
I found none.
Okay, so no recro waste codes, then we're gonna put an NA in one of those 6 little boxes. And the reason why there are 6 little boxes is because some materials will have more than one waste code. So if you did have more than one waste code, you would fill in all of the waste codes in these little boxes, okay? However many you've got. Most of them, it's only gonna be 1 or 2, but occasionally you'll have one that has more, okay? But if you have none, you're gonna put NA, that way they know you didn't just skip that line and you know that there is no recro waste code for it, okay? Now, the second material that we are going to be carrying in our truck is 2 55-gallon plastic barrels of potassium permanganate. Okay, so when we look at potassium permanganate on the big table, let me search that one. Its UN number is 1490. Okay, potassium, so its name is the same, potassium permanganate. We write that in the line number 2 under 9B. Now, is this one a hazardous material? Yes, because it has a UN number and it's on the hazardous materials table. So both of these should have an X in the little bitty box. And then you put the chemical name, comma, its hazard class is a 5.1, comma, UN number 1490, comma, PG2. All right, now we're to the containers, and we said that we were going to have 2 of these, so we're going to put a number 2 in that first column under number 10. And then the type, plastic drums, we know from looking up the last one what that code is.
Yeah.
DF, so put that in that. Total quantity. So this one, the total quantity for the potassium permanganate, this one is a powder, not a liquid. And so instead of liquid gallons, we're gonna need to use pounds for this one, okay? So it is, one of you may have to get out your phone and do a little bit of math here. Potassium permanganate is 22.55 pounds per gallon. So if we've got 55 times 2, how many gallons do we got? 110, and then multiply that by 22.55 to tell us the total amount of pounds we have of this material.
2,480.5.
2,480.5.
Yes. Yes.
All right, so that is the 2,480.5 is going to be what you're gonna put in the quantity box. And then the units of measure, we gotta go back to our chart, figure out pounds is a P. What's your question?
What was the container part for the containers again?
under the containers, you got 2 and they're plastic, so it's gonna be the F again.
Alright.
Pounds is P, yeah. So the total quantity, column 11, 2,480.5. And then column 12 is gonna be the P for pounds.
So like if something's coming into the US, it comes into the US and then the port, like it comes in port, so that port would be responsible for making this manifest form before it ships out to different locations.
It should actually already have the manifest when it arrives, so if it's moving to a
That
different
could change.
container. Yeah, if it's changing to a different container, like they're taking some out of one and putting some from, several different containers into one container and then shipping it, then yes, they would have to do a new manifest. Or actually, that'd probably be shipping papers, because it probably wouldn't be waste going out like that. If it was waste, like for example, when I worked in Hugo, and we had a facility in Hugo and McAllister, and they would come and pick up our materials and several other people's along the way. They would have a manifest for each person that they were picking stuff up from, and all those manifests would go together with their shipping documents.
Talking about that, I'm not sure, like, those manifests are uniform, like they use the same format, like, let's say Canada, Mexico, and everything.
Yes. Yep. So once you know it, you've got great knowledge that is applicable.
They also use the same thing for like Europe.
Yeah, they do, I don't know that it's 100% the same when it goes over, but I know that the UN numbers are all the same, the placards and labels and that kind of stuff stays the same. Not sure if they do their manifest paperwork any differently, but I would imagine that it's very similar. For the same reason they do the global harmonization, it's just dangerous to have chemicals being shipped all over the world and have different systems. So it's gonna be very similar if it's not exactly the same.
So the UN stands for United Nations, right?
Mhm.
So what if it's for the people that aren't part of the United Nations, like how do they classify their shit?
I have no idea. That's an excellent question.
No, boom, boom substance.
Don't stick teeth with that and no put fire.
We need to like make a discussion board for this class and make that a question. Figure it out. No. The online class would really love that, I'm sure. They're gonna be like, I hate you guys in that live class. All right, so record waste codes, do we have any for potassium permanganate?
No.
No, so that'd be in it.
Fine with that, yeah.
So they should be on the manifest, I mean, not the manifest, the SES. You can look on the EPA list of lists and look up materials by the CAS numbers to determine whether or not they have record waste code numbers.
What about the large green one?
Both of these do not, yeah. All right, so then the next column that we have on the manifest is special handling instructions and additional information. So remember when we looked up the things that were incompatible or couldn't be shipped or only could be shipped with special provisions in the last class? So what are our hazard classes that we have today?
5.1 and 8.
5.1 and 8. What do y'all remember from the last assignment about those two?
No, 8 can't be on top of 5.1.
Right, they can travel in the same vehicle, but they have special shipping provisions. 8 cannot be stacked above the 5.1, and they need to be separated by a distance that is gonna ensure that they can't commingle if they were to spill during shipment. So that's what you would be putting in that special handling instructions, is that if you had any reportable quantities, you would also say that in this little section. If you have any materials that have special shipping provisions, you're gonna spell out what those shipping provisions are in that little section. Any other information that like the transporter might really need to know, like this material is explosive if you put water on it. That would be good to know in an emergency. We would put that information in special handling instructions. If it has to be transported at a certain temperature, we would put that in the special handling instructions. Okay, and then section 15, the generator's certification. And remember I told you earlier in the semester that when you sign it, you're literally saying you've done everything you can to reduce the amount of waste. If you read this tiny little thing, it basically says that you are certifying that everything that you filled out is correct to the best of your knowledge, and that if you've exported shipments, your primary exporter, you certify that the contents of the consignment conform to the terms attached in the EPA acknowledgement of consent, and you have minimized as much as possible the amount of materials that you have. So then you would sign that or print your name rather, then sign it, and then the date that you've sent the materials out. And that's as far as you would fill it out as the shipper. The remainder of this information is gonna be signatures for the transporters that pick it up. And then the disposal site, when they receive it, they're gonna indicate how much of all this material to make sure that they received everything that you shipped out. And they're gonna put a little bit of information in here.
And this is a ton of uranium.
Right, something's missing here. We need to check into that. And then once they finish all of this stuff, they're gonna keep a copy and they're gonna send a copy back to you as the original person who sent it out to start with. So you got your kind of closed loop on that.
So what are the special provisions like on the table? Like what is IBA or IPT?
Okay, so that is an excellent question. What are the special provisions on the table? So when you go to the hazardous materials table, and this part you need to know, this part in the packaging, you're gonna need to know for your SLP, because it's gonna ask you about any kind of shipping provision requirements, and then packaging requirements. So when we're looking for that information, we're going to 49 CFR 172.102, and then these codes that are in the box are gonna be the paragraph numbers that are gonna have that additional information. So let me write these down real fast so I'll be able to go back to them and see. We got 1B8, IP2, IP4, T3, and TP33. All right, and then when we get to the packaging, we're gonna go to 173 point, and then it'll be 173 point, then whatever the number is that's down here. So if we're sending it on a truck, we're gonna go with the ones in the first column where it says exceptions right here. If you're going to be sending these materials on a train where you're gonna be in bulk that you're gonna be sending it, then you're gonna go to the 240. This one is only if it is shipped by air, which we're not shipping any in this scenario this semester by air or water. But this would give you the information if you were shipping it by air or water. So if you were shipping it by air in a passenger cargo plane, you could send potassium, only 5 kilograms of potassium permanganate on that plane. If you were sending it on a boat, it would have to be stowed in whatever section D is, which it'll have a description in the standard for that. And then you would have to look at these other special shipping provisions to see what kind of requirements it is for it to be on the boat there. Okay,
What's the difference between the non-bulk and exceptions? You said like bulk would be if it was like by train or.
right. Let's look it up. All right, the difference between bulk and non-bulk, let's see. Difference between bulk and non-bulk packaging for DOT is considered primarily by the capacity of the packaging. You can use the chart below to find the quick answers. So it has like how much of the material that you can send. In this little chart that's going to tell you, like, if you were sending anything greater than 119 gallons, you would consider that to be bulk if it's liquid. Anything less, non-bulk.
So
And then what are the exceptions?
permanganate, we'd be pretty close to being non-bulk.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and then it didn't say what the exceptions was when you did it.
So you said that for our SLP, we have to go through the special provisions and list those in packaging in that section?
All right, let's see. The exceptions column. For certain materials that evidence that DOT estimation minimal risk. Okay, so those are gonna be, if it's something that DOT estimates that there's a minimal risk and it's a very small amount that you're shipping, then you would go with the exceptions, yeah. So I think I did say this column when I said truck, it should be this column. The non-bulk is gonna be truck, and then the bulk is gonna be if you're going on train, okay? All right, so let's look at these special shipping provisions right here. So if you're looking at what do I have to do if I'm shipping potassium permanganate? Let's go to, and I'm just clicking on the 172 right in the table. So it's going to take us to that part of the section. And then we're looking for paragraph IB8. So if you'll scroll, and some of this will take a lot of scrolling to get to what you're looking for.
You can do the control.
Oh yeah, I can also do that. I forgot about, I have the. You are so smart, and that is why I have you in this class. All right.
What are we searching through? What?
We are, so when we were on, my voice is going away. When we were on the table,
Okay.
right, and we were looking at the column that had special shipping provisions. Let me go back down to the column, the table real quick. Okay, here we are. We were looking at this column right here, so special shipping provisions, because for your semester long project, you do have to tell us for each of the chemicals, are there any kind of special shipping provisions in this part that you're working on right now? Okay, so we know that it had several. I'm not going to scroll back down to those. I'm going to go back to the table. We'll look at the list that we had. We searched, we had IB8. It takes you to this little table that gives you like the IB codes. If you want to know more about what the little codes are, you can read the little paragraph just before them, and it's going to tell you these provisions only apply to transport of IBCs and large packaging. Table 1 authorizes IBCs for specific proper shipping names through the use of IB codes. And so basically it's telling you about the, let's see, what do we have? IB8, authorized IBC. This is going to be metal containers, and these different numbers that are in here, the different types of containers that they could be in, rigid plastic containers, composite containers, fiberboard, wooden, flexible containers. So it's giving you basically some information about the very specific types of containers that this material would have to be in if it's being shipped. Okay, the IP2.
So is that, so what do you want us to place in our project for these codes?
You could copy this part that just says, these are the types of containers that it could be shipped in.
Okay, so we would put like potassium permanganate
Right.
and IB8, do like a dash, copy and paste that, and then go through the rest.
Yes.
of the codes.
Yeah, and not all of these are gonna be, not everything in this section will be, or all these different codes are gonna be containers. Like for example, this one says, if we had something that was an IB7, there's additional requirements for liners of wooden IBCs, must be shift proof, meaning that it's not gonna be able to shift around during transport. So you just need to look at the tables for the information. The next one was IP2. So this is also going to apply to the potassium permanganate. When IBCs other than metal or rigid plastic IBCs are used, they must be offered for transport in a closed freight container or a closed transport vehicle. Okay, so that's a little bit more on the shipping information. Now the next one, IP4, that one's a little bit further down right here. If we were using flexible fiberboard or wooden IBCs, they must be shift proof and water resistant to be fitted with a sift proof and water resistant liner. So these, whether we used IP2 or IP4 would depend on what containers we picked from up here. So if we said we're shipping this in a metal container, then IP2, let's see. I don't think it had anything for metal, did it? No, IP2 was if we were, metal or rigid, then IP2 would apply, IP4 would not, because we're not shipping it in that type of container, okay?
So do you want us to pick the ones that are used for our containers?
Yeah, so if you're gonna say the material that you are shipping it in is going to be, so the plastic would fall under the flexible one. So we just said we're shipping it in the plastic container. So we're gonna say IB8 is gonna apply. These are the types of plastic containers that would be acceptable, or I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Rigid plastic is this one. Rigid plastic right here. Okay, so it's gonna be shipped in one of these types of plastic containers. And that's just, it's kind of like the grade of plastic to make sure that it's gonna be able to support the material that you've got in it. It's not gonna break down or start leaking or something like that, okay? So if we're using that rigid plastic, then we're looking at this one still, the IP2, is for metal or the rigid plastic. So it's gonna be in closed freight container or closed transport vehicle, right? So it can't be in an open back truck, something like, or, you know. All right, and so IP4 wouldn't apply in this specific situation because of the container we've already chosen, okay? Now let's look at the next one is gonna be in the T's, it's T3. This one, this is saying that the container has to be able to minimum, test pressure bar, that it has to, this is basically giving you the minimum standards for performance that it's going to be, rated for. Okay, so the minimum thickness, minimum pressure, bottom opening requirements, if it has any, it's gonna tell you where that other information is, okay? So this one, again, you could just tell us, minimum pressure bar, 2.65, minimum shell thickness. You'd have to go to this standard to see what the thickness is, and you should be able to just click the little button right there to take you to that, and you're looking for paragraph D2 when you go there, okay? Pressure relief requirements are normal, and then you would have to look at this standard, which again, you should click here, and then you would be getting D3 would be the paragraph you're looking for what it's telling you as far as any kind of requirements for bottom openings, okay? And then the last one for this one, TP33. And when we go to that paragraph, it says, the portable tank instructions assigned for this substance applies for granular and powdered solids and for solids which are filled and discharged at temperatures above their melting point, which are cooled and transported as a solid mass. Solid substances transported or offered for transport above their melting point are authorized for transportation in portable tanks conforming to the provision of the portable tank instructions. So basically it's saying that it has you need to know what temperature it can be shipped at, and if it's gonna be shipped above that, you're gonna have this special provision, okay? Does that make sense?
So we would also just,
Yeah, you can just copy and paste that, yeah, yes. And yes, this section because there's so much that is coming straight from the standards, I know that the match portion of your, when you turn it in, the thing where it checks to see plagiarism and all that stuff, it's gonna flag that stuff, but if you cite it, it doesn't count against you, okay? So when you copy this information, you're gonna put that this came from 49 CFR, put the standard number there and cite your source. So that, and then anything that is cited, I can click the button and tell it not to count the things that are cited, and then I can see how much you actually wrote of all the rest of the stuff, okay? All right, now the other thing that you needed to know from the great big table of everything, which we're gonna go back to that. Let's see, is this the right one? No, we're still 172. We want this. The other thing that we needed was the packaging provision, or not the packaging provisions, just the packaging. All right, so if we go to the column where it has packaging, we're looking at 173 dot whatever's in the box down here. So when we were looking at, and I didn't write those down, but let me do Control F and
1490.
All right, so the packaging requirements, we're looking over here, 173.212 if we're shipping it by truck, which we are, because it's small amounts. We're not shipping a bulk amount. So we want to look up 173.212. I'm just going to open another screen here, and we're going to go 49 CFR 173.212. All right, so non-bulk packaging for solid hazardous materials that are in packaging group 2. This is what the options are for all the different types. The following packages are authorized. These are going to be everything that you could ship, every different type of container that you could ship that material in. except for if you're transporting it by air, which we're not, so you're not gonna include this information. Let's see. Yeah, all of that stuff is just for plane, which we're not doing. So this would be, any of these packages would be appropriate for you to be shipping that material in, okay? So you could put in there that any of these materials would be acceptable. You have chosen that you are going with, whichever one, I think it was plastic drum, one H1 or one H2.
So do you just want us to put the plastic drum for the 1H1 for this, or do you want us to just copy this?
You're talking on the SLP? Yeah, instead of copying and pasting that whole entire thing, you can just put in, the one from that list that you have selected that would be appropriate for the materials. So if you look at the original assignment and it says it comes in plastic drums or it comes in paper bags or whatever, then look at that list and find like a code that's gonna be that type of container. Like ours just said plastic drums. And then when you look at this, the types of plastic drums that you could use would be one H1 or a one H2. Okay? Any other questions? I know the chapter 16 is probably the most technical one that you've had to deal with. There's a lot of information. It all goes back to those tables. So I know that one will take you a little bit longer. The other thing I was going to show you was if you go to the OSHA website, I was going to try to show you the document where you can find all the training stuff kind of summed up. Ooh, they have a fireworks safety video.
So what's that,
That's not the one that I'm looking for. There's a specific publication that they put out that has, it has a list of all safety, all the training for OSHA standards listed by the standard. I'm gonna see if I can find that. I could just put it in the class and that'll be easier than trying to make y'all find it. You know what? I know that I have it in my training class, so I'll just copy it from that class into y'all, so y'all can find it.
somewhere?
Much easier than trying to like make you guys find it, because it looks like they have either changed the name of it or they've changed the location. It's not looking like it is easy to find, so I'll just add it in there for y'all. Don't forget to take y'all's test on Tuesday.